Hi everyone. We'll just wait for a couple of minutes so that others can join in the meantime. We'll be starting at sharp at 9:30. We'll just wait for 2 more minutes. Yeah, hi everyone. Hi everyone who's joining from across the globe. We'll just wait for a couple of more minutes and then we'll start ahead with the session. Yeah, hi Mercy. Hi Chagan. Hi guys who joined us. Guys, just give us another minute so that we'll just wait for others to join. And soon after everybody's joined in, we'll go ahead with the session. Yeah, once again, hi to all those who joined us. We're soon starting the session in a minute. We're just waiting for others to join in so that we don't want anybody to miss this crucial session that we've organized for you guys today. Once again, hi everyone. Last 10 seconds or 20 seconds that we'll wait, and then we're going ahead and starting the session. I would like to thank everybody who joined us, and stay tuned, guys. We have a lot to discuss with you on what happened in 2025 and what is up for 2026. All right, it's 9:30 and we are starting the session. So once again, I welcome all of you towards session. Today, we are going to talk about the security leadership outlook of 2026, reviewing 2025 and the predictions for the year ahead. Today, we take a focused look on how the cybersecurity landscape evolved through 2025 and what leaders must prepare for as we step into 2026. Along with me, we are joined by Sophia and Kunal, our experts in cybersecurity. They'll help us walk us through the most impactful shift that we've seen in this year, including the rise of AI-powered attacks, the growing risk from IT, OT, and IoT convergence, the identity explosion, the evolving GRC pressures, the leadership risk, and of course, the realities of budget constraints. With that, once again, I thank you all for joining us in today's session. If any of you have any questions, feel free to ask your questions in the Q&A sessions that you see below. Let's dive straight into the presentation, and over to you, Sophia.
Yeah, thanks, Anish, and hello, everyone. So with the further slide, I'm going to speak about the major types of cyber attack happen in 2025. So as we know that the cyber landscape didn't just evolve, it shifted dynamically. Defenders suddenly found themselves in a world where everything is moving so fast that they couldn't react to it. Security teams are no longer fighting static threats, they are fighting against adaptive cyber attacks that learned, evolved, and retained themselves in real time. On the other hand side, we have attackers who is embracing AI with the same intensity. Deepfakes become tool of corporate manipulation. Phishing was automated at a scale we'd never seen, and shadow AI quietly entered into enterprise without security approval. Even the system we trusted, our LLMs and AI vendors introduced new vulnerabilities into the organization. Then the next is identity exploitation. So identity itself is becoming a problem. Machine identity, service account, automation bots, they grew faster in the organization, and it is very difficult for the security team to track this much amount of machines into an organization and track their identities. And while IT and OT environments continue to converge, aging OT systems and insecure IoT fleets creating new opening for attackers to move from digital world to physical infrastructures. At the same time, governments are putting regulatory where breach reporting rules become stricter, AI governance requirement increases, and secure coding mandates move from recommendation to expectation. There is a global cybersecurity talent shortage, which CISOs are facing, and increasing personal liability and teams struggling to keep the roles filled of security personnel. And lastly, it is harder for the organization to put budget that that they can't expand for threat landscape. Organizations were pushed to rationalize tool, increase automation, and rely more heavily on service provider or MSSP just to maintain baseline protection. So 2025 wasn't just another year for cyber change, it was the year for the rule of the game fundamentally shifted. So with the next slide, I will talk about each of these trends in detail. So can we move to next slide? Yeah, so with this, after this slide, we are going to talk about the key cybersecurity and compliance trends. So first one is adaptive cybersecurity defense. So in 2025 has broken our traditional security playbooks. The pace at which cloud, SaaS, APIs, and especially AI-driven system changed was simply faster than the way we were securing them. So we used to operate in a world where risks were slow, predictable, and easy to document. But in 2025, exposure popped up, disappear, reappear, sometimes within minutes. So it is very difficult for the security team to manage all these kind of things within seconds or in minutes. The implication of adaptive cybersecurity risk is it has been proven, and 2025 made one thing painfully clear, that old security approaches simply couldn't keep up. Cloud and SaaS configuration changes so fast that by time security team reviews something, it was already outdated. Compliance are still slow and manual. The audit is quarterly and annually uh, updated, which gives only a partial or often outdated picture of the real risk. Then there is security team who is continued working in silos. Cloud identities, SaaS, DevOps, each seeing only a small part of attack surface and not the full picture of the cyber attack that is happening into the organization. Then there is threat modeling, which is a great example that has happened in most of the cases in 2025. It was skipped not because team didn't care, but because the process was manual and it didn't fit into agile development cycle. As a result, many applications shipped with design flaws that were never caught early. Now, what are the shift expected in 2026 because of adaptive cybersecurity threats or risk? The shift now is toward continuous, automated, and unified cybersecurity. First, we are seeing exposure management becoming the new normal. Instead of waiting for audits or ticket queues, exposure management tools or systems give real-time visibility into every exposure across cloud, SaaS, identity, data, external attack surface, all this kind of infrastructure into an organization. Then there is compliance. Control check no longer rely on spreadsheet or static audits. So there is continuous compliance management platform that make compliance live and dynamic and updated in real time. With this, we have threat modeling as a solution, one of the biggest bottleneck, because automated and AI assisted embedded directly into the development pipeline. So this means developer don't need to stop and check for security. The modeling happens as they build. And lastly, the misconfiguration get caught and fixed earlier, and risk a decision start aligning with business outcomes. So with the next slide, I'll talk about what CISO must prioritize in 2026. It means 2026 is a year to rebuild the foundation for the CISOs. They should start by using or investing into exposure management tools to get real-time visibility across cloud, identity, and third party, and most importantly, validate actual attack path instead of drowning into alerts. They need to automate control check using continuous compliance management. So compliance between so the compliance becomes continuous and not audit based, which is updated quarterly or yearly. Then there is secure by design investment that they should do, and that must be non-negotiable. With AI-assisted threat modeling embedded into SDLC lifecycle, developers can catch issues at the design stage rather than when the app is already in the production or in the runtime. And finally, there is incident response that needs modernization. Playbook must be updated, so configuration drift, exposure change, and identity misalignments are targeted as urgent and not as a background noise. So with the next slide, I will talk about another trend that we have seen, which is AI-powered attacks and deepfake. So in the past, cyber attacks required time, effort, and some level of sophistication. But 2025 changed everything. AI made attacks faster, more scalable, and frankly, much harder to detect. Attackers no longer need a team, they just need a model, a AI model. So the implication for this in 2025 is AI made traditional attacks more automated. Phishing emails were no longer in broken English, now they are in perfect, contextual, personalized, and delivered to a machine level speed, hence harder to detect for the users or for the people. Then there is deep fake voice and video scam exploded. So finance team, HR team, supplier management, everyone is becoming a target for this. Imagine receiving a video call from what looks and sound like your CFO approving a transfer. So that is what exactly happening with deep fake voice and video scams. Now there is cloud and SaaS exposure multiplied. So AI tools scan misconfiguration faster than security team could patch them. There is traditional scans started failing. Attackers use AI to find identity leaks, expose secrets, weak tokens are now the area for traditional scanners not always pick up. Then there is organization becoming blind to AI specific risk. So data leakage into LLMs, model misuse, shadow AI used by employees. No one had full visibility into all these things. And the most important question that is being asked in the boardroom, like how exposed are we right now? And we unfortunately don't have any real answer for this. So what will shift in 2026? So 2026 will be a year where cybersecurity will become continuous, automated, and AI aware. Exposure management stop being optional and become continuous. It is now the only way to keep up with cloud SaaS identity exposure that change every hour. Deep fake detection become the part of daily workflow. Finance, HR, vendor onboarding, every communication channel now needs validation. Then AI governance is becoming mandatory. Companies finally realize that they need governance and risk control for both internal and third-party AI models. And there is identity security, which should be protected, and not just for humans, but also for the machine's identity, AI agents, LLM accounts, and automation tokens. Then there is supply chain security that should go continuous. Instead of annual or quarterly check, vendor will be continuously monitored by the organizations or the users who are using their platform. Then there is platform which should be finally unified. So intel from threat systems, detection tools, exposure tools all merge into a single view of faster decision making. So this will be the expectations for 2026. And with the next slide, there are few things that CISOs must prioritize in 2026. So they should adopt again exposure management tool. So to have real-time validation of exposures and AI-driven attack paths. Then there is deploy of deepfake and AI fraud detection, especially across financial approvals, executive communication, and supplier interaction. Then there is implement AI governance. So again, your AI models and third-party LLM tool must operate under strict policies, permission, and monitoring. Then strengthen supply chain security, continuous monitoring and tighter contract and automated alert for your third-party ecosystem. And lastly, there is the CISO should focus on providing real-time business-focused dashboard to the board. So board doesn't want technical metrics anymore. They want what is our risk right now and what actions we need to take to mitigate those kind of risk, which is impacting their business. Now with the next slide, we have another trend, which is identity explosion, human versus machine identities. So by 2025, something unusual has happened inside the organization. Identities completely exploded. Not human identities, but machine identities. So there are AI bots, SaaS application, plugins, API tokens, automated scripts. All of this suddenly became the new user inside the enterprise. And because of these identities grew faster than security team, it is difficult to track them. And they bring the blind spots, misconfiguration, and uncontrolled data access. This forces CISOs to rethink identity security from ground level. And the implications for this in 2025 is there was a huge surge in machine identities. Every AI agent, SaaS plugin created a new identity. Every automation script, every API connection, suddenly everything has its own token and permission level. And this creates real problem. Most cloud and SaaS breaches weren't about malware. They were caused by stolen tokens, wrong permission, and unused plugins sitting in the environment unnoticed. So AI tool added to the chaos by generating their own identities without proper oversight. Meanwhile, shadow data exploded. Data was being stored, replicated, or accessed in a place nobody has visibility into. SaaS to SaaS connection and embedded AI feature created hidden access path that traditional IAM tool couldn't see. And the bottom line is company had no complete inventory of their AI model, data flow, identity permission, and that can become one of the biggest risks of 2025. And this will and the shift expected in 2026 are it will be the year of identity security, and it should be continuous. SSPM, SaaS Security Posture Management, will continuously monitor SaaS identities, permissions, and AI configuration. And then there is Data Security Posture Management, which will map unknown data and finally expose who has access to what. And risk will be tied directly to business impact through data risk assessment, making every identity gap measurable in terms of the board, in terms that the board understand. And then there is AI governance will become mandatory. Every AI agent, embed in model or LLM tool will finally fall under control policies. And the automated remediation will kick in, fixing risky permission and removing unused account in real time. So this will be the big shift. And what CISOs must prioritize in 2026 will be with the next slide. Yeah. So first, the use of SSPM to continuously monitor SaaS identities, plugins, interconnection, and eliminate anything unused or risky that is running into the organization. Second, rely on data security posture management to map all the data and identity excessive or unknown access path. Third, have or invest into digital risk assessment to convert identity issues into real financial operations and compliance risk numbers, because that's what the board understand best. And the fourth, implement AI governance to govern AI model and agents. This will enforce strict access boundaries and ensure AI systems don't exceed their intended roles. And finally, treat machine identity exactly like human identities. Inventory every token, service account and bot, enforce least privilege, automate credential rotation, because in 2026, the line between human and machine identities will going to disappear, and your security strategy must reflect that in coming time. So with the next slide, we have risk in proprietary LLMs and supply chains. So in 2025, enterprise adopted proprietary LLMs and AI-powered SaaS tools as tools to speed up their operations into the organization. But the enthusiasm and outpaced understanding. This model operated like closed black box. and organization had very little insights into how they processed or stored their data. So this creates silent compound risk across AI supply chain, from hidden data flows to unknown machine identities generating AI agents. By 2026, company must evolve from trusting AI implicitly to rigorously governing every model, dataset, and dependency. And the implication for this in 2025 will be the lack of visibility into proprietary LLM uh, behavior becoming the real problem. SaaS app quietly sent sensitive information to embed AI feature. Data security posture management tools start uncovering shadow AI datasets that no one realized existed. And AI embedded inside vendor product expand the supply chain attack surface. With this AI agent generating new machine identities automatically, organization end up with high risk access path that security team never approved or monitored. So the shift expected in 2026 will be governance will become continuous. AI governance will be essential for tracking models, behavior, output, and data handling. SSPM will extend its coverage to AI-driven plugins and SaaS to AI data flow. Data security posture management will evolve to map all data feeding to LLMs, helping eliminate unknown datasets and leakage points. Then risk quantification will expand to include AI-specific failures, hallucinations, and model outage. And supply chain security will finally cover the entire AI pipeline, every vendor, every model, and every dependency that is happening into the organization. So with this, the CI must prioritize in 2026. They must establish full visibility across all AI systems. This means inventorying every model, monitoring behavior, continuous and demanding transparency of AI vendors. Then SaaS AI features need strict oversight through SaaS security posture management, which should track plugins, blocking risky data flow, and validating permission. Data security posture management should be used to map all training and interface data and eliminate shadow data set. AI risk must quantify in real time that matters to the business, linking failure and leaks to financial exposure. The AI supply chain must be secure with requirement and third-party risk monitoring. And finally, machine identities, API keys, agent, automation bot must be governed with the same rigor as human identity, enforcing least privilege across the board. So this was regarding the proprietary LLM. And with this, I would like to hand over the slide to Kunal.
Thank you, Sophia. Good morning, everyone. Today, we dive into a major transformation underway in industrial and critical infrastructure environment, the convergence of traditional IT, OT, IoT, industrial IoT, and edge systems. What was once a different world, today enterprise on the one side and OT on the other side is now becoming tightly interconnected. As organizations modernize, adopt IoT and IIoT, edge-enabled devices, and unified data streams, this brings efficiency. Along with that, it also brings a risk. According to a research, this merging of IT and OT expands the attack surface dramatically. Previously, isolated OT environments are now reachable via corporate IT or IoT network. In fact, for many common industrial controllers deployed in OT environment, major vulnerabilities remain unpatched. A leading vendor estimated that as many as 75% of such controllers had high severity vulnerabilities. Meanwhile, the forecast for IoT profilation is staggering. By 2025, global connected IoT devices are expected to number tens of billions, driving further convergence and increasing potential entry points for attackers. So, convergence brings benefit, but it also means that legacy OT system designed a decade ago largely for functionality, not security, are now exposed to modern threat vectors. This convergence is happening against a backdrop of rising geopolitical tension and increasing targeting of critical infrastructure by nation-state actors. According to a recent report, nation-state attacks with physical consequences tripled in 2024. Some of the key observations made over there are many of these incidents were not about sophisticated zero-day exploit, but rather exploitation of weak segmentation, credential theft, or insecure remote access, often beginning in the IT and cascading into OT. This means organizations with poorly segmented IT-OT network are especially vulnerable. Once IT is compromised, OT or cyber physical system can be disrupted, causing a real-world physical effect. For sectors such as manufacturing, energy, water, healthcare, or even smart buildings, collectively covered under the CPS or OT, represent an existential risk. So, what is the real-world impact of this? According to an industry survey in 2023, more than 70% of the organizations reported at least one attack in the past 12 months. And many OT intrusions are not kind. In the global survey in 2024, more than half of the respondents said that they experienced significant degradation of brand awareness due to OT security incident, up sharply from 34% in 2023. And this isn't hypothetical. The threat is real, growing, and increasingly physical. So what implication it has for 2025? Given this backdrop, what does 2025 hold for CPS, OT, and IoT security? First, the attack surface expansion. As more IoT, industrial IoT, edge devices are deployed, many potentially unmanaged, unpatched, identity-less, and legacy security controls in many legacy OT systems do not match modern standards. It surges in vulnerabilities and supply chain exploitation as adversaries pivot to supply chain and third-party vectors like less hardened vendor, contractors, IoT devices suppliers to compromise CPS or OT environment. Third, you can say is the organizational friction. Many companies still remain a separate IT and OT team. When a cyber physical incident occurs, lack of shared visibility and coordination can delay detection and response. This increases the risk and magnifies potential damage. Again, the regulatory and stakeholder pressure. As impact grows, regulators, insurers, and even the customers will demand more stronger IT, IoT, OT, and CPS security control, governance framework, and demonstrable risk management. In short, what I can say is 2025 will be the tripping point for many organizations where business as usual may not be long hold. Shifts to be expected in 2026 based on the current trajectory and what security leaders are anticipating. Here's what we expect in 2026 for the OT CPS security landscape and what prudent organizations should prepare for. There should be a mandatory OT-specific incident response and resilience planning. As regulators tighten requirements, especially for these critical infrastructure, expect more mandates for documented IR plans, cross-team coordination, and compliance with industrial cybersecurity standards. Rapid adoption of device identity, security firmware, and continuous monitoring. Organizations will increasingly embrace device identity framework, firmware integrity check, and round-the-clock telemetry for IoT, IIoT, and OT devices, especially for the legacy ones. This is already being recommended by several security framework proposals. Growth in public-private threat intel sharing program. Government and private sector infrastructure operators are likely to expand the information sharing, especially about nation-state threat targeting CPS or OT. Again, the emergence of unified IT-OT security operation. Organizations will move towards unified SOC models with shared telemetry playbook covering both IT and OT and coordinated incidents response. And another important one is micro-segmentation and compensating controls for legacy OT. Because many OT systems cannot be retrofitted easily, firms will rely on compensating controllers, segmentation, network isolation, restricted access, continuous monitoring as a standard practice. Next slide, please. Okay, so what CISOs and security leaders must prioritize? Given all this, all the security leaders in general and the CISOs should focus what they should focus on to stay ahead of the curve. First thing is hardening of OT, IoT, and CPS environment. Implement segmentation, enforce device identity, ensure firmware integrity, and enable continuous monitoring of all legacy devices. establish joint IT/OT SOC models and safety-oriented incident response plan. IT and OT must operate under a unified security and operation plan supported by cross-functional leadership and playbooks. Build enterprise-wide CPS risk management, update asset discovery and risk registries. Maintain visibility. Know what device exists, where they are connected, what risk they carry, and what are the real-world impact on breach could be. Perform a regular tabletop exercise for cyber physical failures. It is not enough to have a plans on the paper. Organizations must regularly test response for test all the procedures for the OT-ICS incidents to ensure readiness. Prevent shadow CPS and IT and IoT deployments. So engage operations, engineering, and facility team early. Many IoT deployments happen outside IT purview. Include them in planning early, and it will help to prevent the unmanaged devices from becoming attack vectors. To conclude over here, as IT and OT and IoT convergence, particularly in sectors like manufacturing, energy, healthcare, utility, and smart infrastructure, it is becoming a prime target for nation state and advanced adversaries, with recent reports showing that nation state attacks and physical consequences have tripled, and that a majority of industrial organizations faced attack last year. The risk has never been higher. For CISOs and security leaders, 2025 to 2026 is not just about upgrading firewalls or patching servers anymore. It's about embedding cyber-physical risk management, bridging organizational gap, and building resilience that spans digital and physical domain. Here, I encourage everyone here to take a fresh look at your OT, IoT, and CPS state. Treat asset discovery, segmentation, visibility, and incidence readiness as a broad level priority, because in the new reality, cyber physical security is no longer optional. Now, moving forward in this session, let's shift our focus from purely technical cyber physical threat to another equally powerful driver of change: the surge in regulatory compliance and governance pressure globally. As organizations adopt digital, cloud, and AI-driven model, regulators and stakeholders are accelerating adoption of data protection, privacy, AI governance, supply chain transparency, and third-party risk requirements. Why this matters? The global compliance is no longer optional. As of early 2025, roughly 144 countries have now implemented data protection or consumer privacy law, covering an estimated 79 to 80% of the world's population. Moreover, in many countries, regulators are expanding the scope, not just the personal data, but software supply chain, AI systems, and third-party dependencies within compliance and risk governance framework. For example, in India, the recent law implemented for the Digital Personal Data Protection Rule under the DPDP Act of 2023 establishes a consent-driven, right-based, security-focused regime, underscoring that businesses operating in India must now align with global data protection norm. So for the multinationals or even the domestic firm, handling personal sensitive data, breach reporting, data protection, privacy consent, third-party risk, all this becomes a baseline compliance expectation, not an optional extract. Compliance pressure isn't just about data. Regulators and the standard bodies are now shifting left into the software development, supply chain transparency, and even AI governance. A big signal over here is that the growing adoption of the secured by design approach in SDLC, the OWASP has formalized a secured by design framework aiming to embed security from architecture design time rather than retrofit later. More concretely, I would say 2025 sees regulators making use of software bill of material as a compliance requirement for software supply chain. For instance, guidelines like those from the CERT in India are pushing for mandatory SBOMs for essential services, fintech, and more, making organizations accountable not just for their own code, but for the entire software supply chain. The core purpose over here is clear. As enterprises increasingly rely on the third-party libraries, open source component, and external APIs, often scale and under rapid release cycles, regulators want transparency, traceability, and documented assurance. That's what shipped is known, vetted, and managed. Thus, the Secured by Design SBOMs developer security training, once good to have, are now becoming compliance expectations. Why 2025 is a critical inflection point, and what is the implications for organization? Now, given all these scenarios, 2025 makes a major inflection in regulatory and compliance pressure. What does this mean for organizations and CISOs? It is the elevated legal pressure, penalties, and mandatory reporting timelines, failure to meet regulatory requirements, data breach, supply chain disclosure, AI governance violation can now trigger fines, reputational damage, and even contractual disqualification for vendors. Traditional compliance model. For many large enterprises, a classic 3-line of defense, 3 LOD GRC model are increasingly challenged by the speed and complexity of modern cyber software and AI-driven risk. Manual audit, periodic reviews, and reactive controls are insufficient now. For CISOs and security leaders, the pressure to unify privacy, identity governance, risk, compliance, and cybersecurity is rising. Different teams such as privacy team, legal compliance team, InfoSec team, or the development team often struggle to maintain an integrated view across data flows, supply chain dependencies, and AI-driven risk. Demand for continuous control monitoring, audit readiness, and real-time compliance visibility is growing. Organizations must shift from point-in-time assessment to ongoing compliance posture management. Additionally, with supply chain and third-party software risk being a broad-level concern, vendor risk, including licensing, open source users, external APIs, needs to be proactively managed and documented. What to expect in 2026 and likely shifts and emerging trends. So looking ahead to the 2026, based on the current trajectories and regulatory signals, we expect several major shifts in how enterprise approach governance, compliance, and risk. So the very first is secured by design is likely to become enforceable. Compliance regimes will mandate secure SDLC practices, SBOMs, secure coding standards, and documented supply chain software hygiene as baseline requirement, not just the best practice. The regulatory push around secure defaults and exploitable components as per the regulations such as CRA in EU makes it increasingly likely. Rapid adoption of AI-driven GRC platform. To manage complexity, automate compliance scoring, risk quantification, or policy update, continuous monitoring, and audit readiness, manual compliance process will be too slow and brittle to cope up with the continuous change. Convergence of cybersecurity, privacy, and compliance governance framework into a unified model. Organizations will increasingly treat data protection, software risk, AI risk, identity governance, third-party vendor risk as a part of unified GRC cybersecurity posture rather than separate teams. Regulatory fragmentation globally is likely to persist or growing, especially for multinationals, with some jurisdictions standardized on framework like CRA, AI Act, data protection law. Others evolve local laws, meaning enterprise must manage the mosaic of overlapping, sometimes inconsistent requirements. Emergence of agile DRG, that is dynamic risk governance, where risk posture and compliance aren't static checkbox, but continuously evaluated, updated, and aligned to challenging business context, technology attack, and threat environment. In short, I will say by 2026, the baseline expectation for compliance will shift from periodic audits and ad hoc reviews to continuous monitoring, automated GRC, supply chain governance, and integrated identity and data governance. Next slide, please. Yes. So given these changes, here are the strategic priorities organizations should embed now to stay ahead, reduce risk, and maintain compliance readiness. Integrate GRC with security operations, that is SIM or SOAR, for real-time risk visibility, unify compliance data, identity logs, third-party risk scoring, and incident telemetry. So risk and compliance posture can be assessed in real time. Establish unified identity governance, human-machine AI agent identities. As organizations adopt AI and automation, machine identities such as APIs, microservices, AI agents become just as critical as human identities. Identity governance must extend to these. Adopt CCM and automated compliance reporting. Shift from periodic audit cycle to continuous automated compliance checks and alerting for deviations, policy drift, misconfiguration, supply chain changes. Strengthen third-party and software supply chain security, SBOM validation, vendor risk scoring, or contract compliance. Enforce SBOM requirement, maintain vendor inventories, continuously monitor third-party dependencies, and ensure new vendor contracts mandate transparency and traceability. Prepare leadership, board, and crisis response readiness. Regulatory, supply chain, privacy, AI failures. Conduct regulatory tabletop exercise, simulate breach reporting, supply chain compromise, or AI failure, third-party violation to test readiness, clarity of responsibilities and reporting chain. Implement governance around agentic AI. Identity permission, guardrail behavior limit. Given the growing synchronity on AI users, organizations must treat AI system as a first-class governance entities, track the uses, permission, data access, decision boundary, and compliance and audit logs. So to conclude, in 2025 and beyond, I will say the regulatory and compliance pressure spanning privacy, data protection, software supply chain, AI governance, supply chain risk, all these will increasingly shape how organizations design, build, and deploy and operate digital systems. For CISOs, GRC leaders, or even the compliance and security team, this is not just a checklist for legal compliance, but a strategic business imperative. Organizations that build robust governance, supply chain transparency, continuous controls, and integrated identity and compliance model will not just avoid fines, but they will build trust, resilience, and long-term competitive advantage. So here I recommend all the leaders over here to perform a gap analysis, review your software supply chain, identity governance, compliance control, vendor contracts, audit readiness, AI users policies, and then build a roadmap towards continuous governance aligned to 2026 expectations. Next slide, please. Okay. So in our previous discussion, we looked at threat expansion, regulatory GRC pressure, and cyber physical risk. Now we will address another critical dimension that is shaping enterprise security strategy, the tightening of budgets and increasing demand for cost efficiency in 2025 and beyond. The macroeconomic climate, such as inflation, uncertain interest and tariff regimes, economic slowdown, is forcing many organizations to synchronize every expenditure line. Security is not immune to this. As a part of recent survey by IANS Research and Artico Search, average growth in security budget in 2025 dropped to around 4%, down from about 8% in the prior year. Moreover, as a share of overall IT spending, security budgets fell from around 12% to around 11% in many organizations. This means CISOs are not being asked to deliver more, with flat or only marginally increasing budget, even as attack surface, threat sophistication, regulatory demands, and operational complexities grow. Now, why this is a critical inflection? Threat volume climbs while the resources stay tight. The timing could not be tougher. One side, the threat landscape is rapidly evolving, AI-driven attacks, increasing identity and supply chain risk, expansive cloud, edge environment, hybrid work, and even more. On the other side, many security operation centers, SOCs, are being asked to scale up monitoring, detection, response without promotional increases in the headcount or budget. The result is fatigue, inefficiency, or even the tool sprawl. According to industry observers, many organizations now carry 20 plus security tools just to cover overlapping functions, leading to complexity, blind spots, and rising maintenance overhead. In this context, maintaining so many tools, heterogeneous security stack is financially unstable. So what does this constrained budget environment imply in 2025? Here are few of the key trends which is being noted. Tool redundancy and overlapping capabilities becoming unaffordable. Organizations are recognizing that each additional point tool adds incremental costs, such as license fee, maintenance, integration overhead, training, among others, but diminishing return. Under tight budget, many of these tools become candidates for rationalization or retirement. SOC fatigue and alert overload. With limited headcount, SOC teams must handle more alerts, more noise, and more complexity. Without automation or consolidation, this increases latency, misses the alerts, burnouts, precisely when threat volume and sophistication are rising. Board demands a clear visibility on ROI and risk-based prioritization. In a tighter financial environment, executives and boards no longer accept because it's security as a justification. They want to see how every dollar spent reduces risk, exposure, or potential loss. Security must speak business language. Automation and efficiency becomes strategic priority. Given limited resource, automation of routine tasks, alert fatigue, log ingestion, patch tracking, or control verification, identity lifecycle, all these becomes essential not just for cost efficiency, but for sustaining security coverage and compliance. So in short, I will say 2025 pushes security leadership into doing more with less intelligently. Looking ahead to 2026, we expect some clear shifts. Platform consolidation accelerates. Organizations will clearly and increasingly favor fewer vendors, more integrated security ecosystem, rapid adoption of automation tools like SOAR, XDR, AI-driven response, co-managed MSSP or MDR models. As per the recent analysis, modern managed security services, MSSP, now leverage automation to deliver 24/7 detection and responses, significantly reduces breach detection time, and offer enterprise-grade protection at lower cost compared to building in-house SOCs. Security ROI becomes a standard reporting matrices. Instead of counting alerts or incidents, organizations will increasingly measure risk reduction, exposure mitigation, business continuity, and resilience. Investment will need to justify real business impact, not just the compliance or peace of mind. With the wider use of CCM, continuous monitoring, control monitoring, to maintain compliance, detect drift, validate control, and reduce manual audit overhead. This becomes critical as organizations face regulatory, third-party, and supply chain risk alongside threat risk. Identity modernization, asset visibility tools are gaining traction. Identity access, asset inventory, and visibility tool, which offer high return on investment relative to cost, are increasingly viewed as foundational and high impact control in an efficient driven environment. Next slide, please. So what CISOs and security leaders must prioritize in 2026? Given this background and the context over here, here's what security leadership should do to navigate budget constraint. Build a risk-based investment framework to justify spend. Map your most critical risk, whether it is identity, exposure, supply chain, compliance, detection latency, or downtime. Quantify potential loss or operational impact and prioritize investment that yield highest risk reduction per dollar spent. This helps even to justify the spend to CFO and the board. Consolidate tools and negotiate platform-centric contracts. Evaluate overlapping point products. Aim to shift towards fewer but integrated platform. For example, let's say unified XDR or cloud workload endpoint along with identity and detection platform to reduce licensing, maintenance, integration, and other operational costs. Integrate automation tools such as SOAR, AI-driven workforce, or XDR. Automate routine SOC tasks. It will help to scale up operations without scaling headcount. Leverage managed service providers with which it makes economic and operational sense. Apply CCM for compliance and control, posture visibility, real-time monitoring, drift detection, compliance dashboard especially. It is important where regulatory, audit, supply chain, and compliances requirements are intersect with the security. Focus on high ROI, high impact control, such as identity governance, asset visibility, exposure management, threat-led automation. Identity and asset management tools are often give the biggest security return per cost or the per dollar spent. To conclude over here, given the current economic reality combined with the Increasing threat complexity and regulatory compliance demand is enforcing a transformation in how security is funded and managed. Security can no longer be a splurge. It must be smart, lean, efficient, and outcome-driven. For CISOs, boards, and even the security leadership team, it is now the time to reevaluate tool sprawl, rationalize stack, adopt automation, build risk-based investment case, and make every security dollar count. If managed smartly, it can become I will say, a force multiplier, driving discipline, enhanced alignment with business goals, and stronger resilience. I would recommend all the leaders to here to do a security stack audit and rationalize today. Map your tools, redundancies, cost versus benefit, identify overlaps, and build a strong roadmap towards consolidation, automation, and high ROI investment. Next slide, please. Okay, so to summarize all the key trends and the shift what we have discussed today. So to conclude over here, the cybersecurity talent crunch and rising leadership aren't temporary. They are structured challenges of our time. As cyber threats accelerate, regulation tightens, attack surface expand, the demand for sophisticated skill, leadership, accountability, and adaptive security operations will grow. In 2026, the CISOs needs to focus on these big areas, I will say. First, we must build an AI-resilient security posture. Threat means using AI to catch, deepfake, unusual behavior, and risk pattern, and controlling how employees use shadow AI tools. Second, we need to secure IT, OT, IoT environment. Attacks on critical infrastructure arising, so segmentation, device integrity, implementation of zero trust framework, secured firmware, and constant monitoring are essential. Third is, I will say, AI supply chain need better protection. We must know which LLMs we depend on, diversify vendors, and create backup workflow if an AI service goes down or is compromised. Next is identity is now a biggest attack surface. We must manage human and machine identities together and apply continuous verification across the life cycle. Next slide, please. Yes, we need adaptive, intelligent, driven defense, firewalls and SOC tools that learn and retain automatically, and incident response powered by AI-based forensics. We also need a compliance-ready architecture. Regulations for AI, data, and supply chain risk are getting stricter, so GRC and SecOps must work on. Also, talent and leadership protection are priority. Security must blend internal staff with MSSPs and virtual CISOs, and organizations must protect CISO from unfair liability. And finally, outcome-based budgeting. Every security investment must show clear risk reduction, automation benefit, and stack rationalization. Overall, I will say 2026 is about building security that is AI-ready, identity-centric, adaptive, and compliance by design. So that's all today from our end. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Kunal, and thank you, Sophia, for taking us through what happened in 2025 and what is about to happen in 2026. We have received a couple of questions to you guys. Well, I'll start with Sophia. We have two questions, Sophia, for you. Starting with, we have one of our attendee asking, why did traditional security playbook fail in 2025?
Yeah, Anish. So what I think this is because the threat landscape stopped behaving in predictable cycle, and the cloud, SaaS, API, and especially AI-driven system changed faster than security team could review or secure them. So exposure appeared, disappeared, and reappeared within minutes, making periodic security control useless, forcing CISOs to abandon static or the traditional security playbooks and move toward continuous adaptive defense.
Just one more, thanks for answering that, Sophia. There is another question regarding adaptive cybersecurity. They're asking, what exactly does it mean in today's security teams? How do they tackle, or what exactly does that mean to them?
So like the adaptive security, it means that security can no longer pause, or it should be in batches, or wait for audits. The controls or the security must be always on, automated, and context aware. So adaptive security continuously evaluates the exposure across cloud, SaaS, APIs, identity, data, adjusting defenses in real time as the environment changes. So instead of reacting to alerts, teams should incorporate within ongoing visibility, catching risk as they happen and not after the damage occurs. So it should be in proactive manner, not the reactive one.
Thanks, Sophia. Kunal, there are a couple of questions regarding budgets, IoT, OT, and the GRC compliances. So I'll start with another question raised by one of our attendees. So he's asking, if budgets are getting tighter, how can CSOs justify security investments to the board?
Okay. So boards today are no longer convinced by generic, we need this because it's a security. CISO must shift to a risk-based investment narrative. So to point out over here, it is very important to show how a specific control reduces exposure or downtime. You can also include quantify potential operational or financial impact, I will say, demonstrate overlap or redundancy eliminated through consolidation, and highlight regulatory and compliance obligations. In 2025 and 2026, the real differentiator is being able to justify or tie every dollar spent to risk reduction, continuity, and compliance. When CISOs present security as a business enabler, it improves the uptime, resilience, and trust, and investment becomes much easier to justify. I hope briefly I have answered this.
Yeah, thanks for answering that, Kunal. I hope he has got his answer. The next question revolves around the IoT OT discussion that we had. So regarding IT, OT, and IoT convergence, what is the biggest blind spot that organizations underestimate these days?
Okay. So I will say many, but to highlight over here, one of the biggest overlooked blind spot today is the legacy OT systems becoming indirectly exposed through IT and IoT routes. Many organizations assume their OT network are air-gapped or isolated, but in reality, modern operations require remote access, cloud connectivity, data integration, and IoT, IIoT sensor feeding analytics. This creates pathway for attackers even when the OT environment itself hasn't changed. Weak segmentation, unmanaged IoT devices, and insecure remote access becomes, I will say, the real risk amplifier. So the blind spot isn't in the OT system. I will say the blind spot is the connectivity around it that erodes traditional isolation.
Thanks for answering that, Kunal. I'm sure that some of them have got a clarity on regarding the blind spot. Now, I just have one last question for you, Kunal. So with so many global regulations that is coming up, how can organizations avoid being overwhelmed with the compliances?
Okay. So I will say this is one of the major challenge because regulatory fragmentation is only increasing. The keynote here is not to chase every law individually, but to build a unified governance and continuous monitoring framework. Consolidate privacy, data protection, software supply chain, identity governance, and cybersecurity under a single GRC model. As I mentioned earlier, adopt CCM instead of manual audits, ensure SBOMs, secure by design and supply chain risk are integrated into SDLC, use automation and AI-driven GRC platforms for real-time compliance posture. So when organizations treat compliance as a continuous integrated discipline rather than a periodic checklist, the complexity becomes manageable. I will say with the, as I mentioned earlier, 144 plus global data protection laws, it is easy to manage.
Great. Thank you for answering that, Kunal, and thanks, Sophia, for your time, and thanks for giving your insights to your audience. To all those who couldn't join us live in today's session, don't worry, we'll be surely sending out the recorded format to everybody who's registered for today's webinar. And once again, thank you all for joining us, and stay tuned. Follow us on LinkedIn, QKS Group, so that you can stay updated with all the upcoming webinars that we have planned for 2026 and the year ahead. Thank you once again to all those who joined, and thank you, Kunal and Sophia, for sharing your insights.
Thank you, guys. Thank you very much.